A woman stands in the dark outside a tomb cut into a limestone cliff. The air is cold, heavy with the smell of myrrh and aloes, a martyred rabbi. But if you look closer at the 40 days that follow that Sunday morning, at the meticulous, deliberate sequence of encounters, but he intentionally chose to keep the trauma visible. The scars are not a reminder of a temporary defeat. They are the permanent receipt of a canceled debt. Thomas does not reach out his hand. The text never says he actually follows through with his physical investigation. The visual weight of the crucified God, standing and breathing in front of him, shatters his ultimatum. Thomas drops to the stone floor. He gasps out 5 words in Greek. O kurios mo kai, O theos mo, my Lord and my God. It is the absolute highest declaration of divine identity recorded in all 4 Gospels. And it comes from the mouth of the man who demanded empirical evidence. The ultimate skeptic becomes the ultimate confessor. The locked rooms of Jerusalem have served their purpose. The legal foundation of the resurrection is set in stone, but the disciples still do not know what they are actually supposed to do next. The adrenaline of the miracles is wearing off, and the reality of Tuesday morning is setting in. They do not know how to live in this new paradigm, so they go back to the only life they know. They leave the city. They walk back to the Sea of Galilee. They push their heavy wooden boats out into the dark water to catch fish, and they sail straight toward a trap made of burning charcoal, recorded across the first-century documents. You start to see something the standard reading completely misses. The empty tomb is not the final proof. Human beings are wired to revert to muscle memory when the world stops making sense. When the trauma is too heavy, or the miracle is too overwhelming to process, we instinctively reach for what we can control. The disciples have seen an empty tomb. They have touched the scars of a resurrected man. They have watched him walk through solid wood, but they have no theological framework for Tuesday afternoon. They do not know how to live in the aftermath of a shattered paradigm. So they go back to the water. Peter says, I am going fishing. It is a profound statement of psychological retreat. He is a fisherman. He knows the weight of a wet net. He knows the smell of the Sea of Galilee in the dark. He knows how to pull a living out of the deep. So 7 of them push off the shore in the pitch black, desperate to find an anchor in the familiar rhythms of their old lives. They fish all night, but they pull up empty nets. The cold morning mist is hanging thick over the water when a figure appears on the shoreline. He tells them to cast the net on the right side of the boat. The net instantly fills, tearing heavy against the wooden hull, teeming with a massive catch. John recognizes him first. Peter throws himself into the freezing water and swims for the shore. But the detail that changes how you read this entire encounter is it is only the invitation. Over the next 40 days, Jesus of Nazareth initiates a sequence of appearances designed to systematically dismantle the skepticism of a crowd waiting for Peter on the sand. John's gospel is incredibly precise in its literary construction. He notes that when the disciples drag the dripping nets onto the beach, they see a fire of coals burning, with fish cooking on it, and bread. The Greek word for that specific type of charcoal fire is anthrakia. It is a rare word. It appears exactly twice in the entire New Testament, both times in the Gospel of John, both times involving Simon Peter. The first time anthrakia appears is in John chapter 18. Peter is standing in the courtyard of the high priest on the night of the arrest. He is shivering in the cold, warming his hands over an anthrakia, a charcoal fire, when he looks at a servant girl, and vehemently denies that he ever knew Jesus of Nazareth. The pungent smell of burning charcoal is the scent of Peter's greatest failure. The second time the word appears is right here on the beach. The breakfast is not a casual reunion. It is a forensic reconstruction of a trauma. Jesus does not just forgive Peter with a wave of his hand. He deliberately recreates the exact sensory environment of Peter's treason. He builds a charcoal fire. He lets the smoke fill Peter's lungs. And in the very place where Peter denied him 3 times in the dark, Jesus asks him to affirm his love 3 times in the morning light. Grace does not erase the memory of the failure. Traumatized. Terrified community. This period of 40 days is not an arbitrary timeline. In the biblical imagination, 40 always represents a period of profound formation. It rewrites the ending of the story. Peter is restored. The psychological wounds of the inner circle are healed. The foundation of the leadership is solid. But the resurrection cannot remain a secret kept by a dozen men in Galilee. The scope is about to expand violently, shifting from a private breakfast to a massive public assembly on a mountainside. A crowd gathers on a Galilean hillside. The wind whips across the tall grass, carrying the scent of wild mustard. Hundreds of men and women stand shoulder to shoulder. The heat of the midday sun presses down on them. Dust coats their sandals. Anticipation hums in the air like a physical electric charge. This is not a private dinner. This is an open-air spectacle. For weeks, the rumors have bled through the villages. The locked rooms have emptied. The fishermen have returned with wild stories. And now, the Apostle Paul records a detail in his first letter to the Corinthians that completely shatters the modern skeptical playbook. He states that the risen Jesus appears to more than 500 brothers and sisters at the exact same time. 500 pairs of eyes, 500 beating hearts, 500 sets of ears hearing the same voice. Modern skeptics often try to dismiss the 40 days as grief-induced visions. They argue the disciples wanted it so badly that their minds simply snapped, producing a comforting mirage. But mass hallucination is a clinical impossibility. And preparation. Rain falls for 40 days. A nation wanders for 40 years. A prophet walks for 40 days through an empty desert. A hallucination is a private, internal psychological event. Two people do not share the exact same hallucination, any more than two people share the exact same dream. This crowd is not experiencing a collective psychological break. They are staring at a historical reality. He stands before them. The sun hits his face. He speaks. Matthew's Gospel records the Great Commission on a mountain in Galilee. And it includes a detail so raw, it validates the entire scene. Matthew writes that when they saw him, they worshipped him. But some doubted. If you are inventing a victorious religious myth, you do not include the doubters. At the climax, you write total submission. You write absolute clarity. But the text leaves the hesitation on the page. Because human beings are complicated, and trauma takes time to unravel. Even when the cure is standing right in front of you, truth does not require perfect comprehension. It simply requires an event. When Paul writes about these 500 witnesses 20 years later, he throws down a massive intellectual gauntlet. He notes that the majority of these people are still alive. He is essentially giving the ancient Roman world an open invitation to cross-examine his claims. Go to the villages. Walk to Galilee. Knock on their wooden doors. Look them in the eye and ask them what they saw on that hillside. The sheer volume of witnesses turns a localized rumor into a public scandal. It makes the resurrection historically undeniable. But the 40 days are running out. The sequence of proof is almost complete. He has verified his physical body. And now, a risen Savior stays for exactly 40 days to forge a new reality. He does not manifest as a spectral vision in the clouds. To the weeping woman, the walking skeptics, the terrified inner circle, and the massive crowd, the evidence is solid. The foundation is poured. Now, he has to leave. And his departure is going to defy every expectation of what an ancient king is supposed to do next. The ancient Mediterranean world knew exactly how a conquering king was supposed to finish his campaign. When a Roman general achieved ultimate victory, he returned to the capital for a triumph. He paraded through the massive marble arches. The air was thick with the pungent smell of burning incense and crushed flower petals. The bronze armor of the legions clattered against the stone streets, and the roar of the crowd echoed off the Colosseum walls. A true king finishes his war by taking a throne you can physically see, holding a golden scepter you can touch, and ruling an empire you can measure on a map. Jesus of Nazareth does the exact opposite. On the 40th day, the the sequence of physical verification comes to a definitive end. He leads his closest friends out of the eastern gate of Jerusalem, up the rocky, uneven slope of the Mount of Olives. The chalky dust of the road settles on their sandals one final time. They ask him if he is finally going to restore the kingdom to Israel. They are still looking for a political revolution. He does not appear as a glowing spirit disconnected from the physical world. He shows up eating charcoal roasted fish on a sandy beach. They are still waiting for the Roman march. He tells them the timeline is not for them to know. He tells them they are going to receive power. And then, gravity simply ceases to hold him. He rises from the earth. A cloud receives him out of their sight. Modern readers often struggle with the ascension. It feels like a primitive myth, a three-tiered universe where heaven is just located up in the sky. But Luke is not describing ancient meteorology. He is describing biblical theology. The cloud is not just water vapor. It is the Shekinah, the exact same heavy, radiant glory cloud that guided the Israelites through the burning wilderness and filled the inner sanctum of the ancient tabernacle. The cloud is the visible marker of the presence of Yahweh. When Jesus steps into the cloud, he is not floating away into the stratosphere. He is stepping across the dimensional veil into the immediate presence of the Father. The ascension is not a departure. It is a coronation. For 40 days, they had grown accustomed to his localized, resurrected body. He was in the locked room, or he was on the Galilean beach, or he was on the mountain. He could only be in one physical location at a time. But by ascending, by stepping out of the visible dimension, he breaks crusty bread at a wooden table in a village. He invites a skeptic to press physical fingers into the jagged, unhealed scars of and taking his seat over all creation. He becomes universally accessible. He is transferring the agency of his ministry from his localized physical body into the collective body of his church. Fueled by the spirit that is about to fall, he did not leave the battlefield. He moved to the command center. For 40 days, he proved that death had been permanently defeated. He verified the receipt. He solidified the witnesses. And then he sat down, because the work of atonement was entirely finished. But that theological reality leaves us with a deeply personal question. A weeping woman asked a gardener for a corpse, and she received her name spoken by a king. Two travelers walked away in despair, and their shattered theology was rebuilt on a dusty road. A terrified community locked a heavy wooden door, and a breathing savior walked through it to show them his hands. A skeptic laid down an empirical ultimatum, and he fell to the stone floor to confess his God. A broken fisherman smelled the smoke of his own treason, and a charcoal fire rewrote his deepest failure. A massive crowd stood in the Galilean sun, and 500 pairs of eyes witnessed a historical reality. Roman execution. This is not a myth slowly forming over decades. This is a deliberate, bodily authentication campaign. A victorious king stepped into a cloud of glory, and the work of human redemption was permanently finished. One 40-day window. One undeniable proof. But maybe the part that stays with me most is the charcoal fire. Not the empty tomb. Not the ascension into the clouds. The pungent smell of burning coals on a cold sandy beach. The fact that the king of the cosmos, holding the keys to death and hell in his scars, took the time to recreate the exact sensory environment of Peter's greatest failure just to make sure the fisherman knew he was not disqualified. If you are in a season where your failures feel louder than your faith, this is a place to sit. The resurrected Christ does not bypass your trauma to get to his victory. He is not afraid of your doubts. He is not repelled by your grief. He walks straight into the locked rooms of your anxiety. He meets you at the exact site of your deepest regret. He does not demand that you understand everything before you believe. He simply asks you to look at the scars and see what they cost. And may the God who leaves the 99 to find the one. To feel the weight of the resurrection, you have to track the sequence of who he approaches, how he approaches them, and what it does to walk with you into whatever locked room you are hiding in today, and bring you out carrying a peace you could not have forged on your own. If this opens something in you, subscribe. Leave a comment, even one word helps. Share this with someone who needs to know that their doubts do not disqualify them. Pray for us as we keep digging into these texts that have begun to sour in the dew. She is not looking for a miracle. She is looking for a corpse, their minds. And the sequence begins with a detail that no first-century inventor of a religion would ever dare to put on a page. If you are fabricating a myth in the ancient Greco-Roman world, you follow a strict playbook. You need credibility. You need authority. You need witnesses who command respect in the public square. A Roman centurion makes a good witness. A wealthy merchant makes a good witness. A respected rabbi makes a perfect witness. A woman from Magdala makes terrible fiction. In the first-century Mediterranean world, a woman's testimony is legally inadmissible in a Jewish court. Her word holds zero legal weight under Roman law. Even a century later, pagan critics like Celsus would openly mock the Christian message precisely because its foundational proof rested on what he called the hallucinations of a hysterical woman. If you are inventing a religion, you hide Mary Magdalene. You write her out of the script. But all four Gospels put her front and center. Because it actually happened. She stands in the garden just outside the empty tomb. The morning mist is thick, clinging to the olive trees. The damp earth smells like overturned soil and crushed limestone. She is crying so hard her vision blurs. You know the story. We all know the story of Sunday morning. You can picture the stone rolled back, the sunlight hitting the interior of the cave, the salt stinging her eyes. She sees a figure standing nearby. She assumes he is the gardener. This is a brilliant, absurd detail. He is not glowing. He has no halo. He looks like a common laborer who works with his hands in the dirt. He asks why she is weeping. Desperate. She begs for the location of the body. He does not split the sky. He does not offer a theological discourse. He speaks exactly one word. He says her name in her native Aramaic, Mary. The first appearance of the risen Christ is not a public vindication. It is a private restoration. The King of the universe does not march to the palace of Pontius Pilate to prove he won. He does not kick in the doors of the Sanhedrin to humiliate the priests. He stands in a quiet garden and comforts a weeping friend. He entrusts the greatest news in the history of the cosmos to the exact demographic, the culture deemed completely unreliable. She runs back to the city. She bursts into the room where the men are hiding. She delivers the message. And exactly as first-century culture would predict, the men do not believe her. The neatly folded linen cloths, resting on the cold rock slab. Most people read the end of the Gospels and assume the resurrection was authenticated right then. The text says her words seem to them like idle tales. The Greek word used there is leros. It implies medical delirium, nonsense, fever dreams. The men stay locked in their room. But the sequence has already begun. The stone is gone. The first witness has testified. And the epicenter of the earthquake is expanding outward. Because while the disciples are cowering behind heavy wooden deadbolts in Jerusalem, two other men are already walking away from the city entirely. They are walking a dusty, 7-mile road toward a village, and a stranger is about to match their pace. The sun is beginning to sink, throwing long, fractured shadows across the dirt road to Emmaus. Two men walk away from Jerusalem. Their sandals kick up the chalky Judean dust with every heavy step. They are leaving the city of their shattered hopes. They are not just traveling, they are escaping. Cleopas and his companion are walking away from the epicenter of their trauma. For 3 years, they believed Jesus of Nazareth was the prophesied Redeemer of Israel. Then they watched the Roman Empire drive iron spikes through his wrists and hang him on a beam of wood. As far as they are concerned, the revolution is dead. A stranger falls in step beside them on the road. And there, the moment the stone moved, we treat the empty tomb as the undeniable climax of the entire narrative. He does not radiate divine light. He does not announce his cosmic identity. He simply asks what they are debating so fiercely. They stop in their tracks. The text notes that their faces are downcast, heavy with the physical exhaustion that only comes from deep, unresolved grief. Cleopas asks if this stranger is the only person in Jerusalem who does not know what just happened. They recount the horrific weekend. They even mention the women finding the empty tomb that very morning. But they dismiss the women's report. They have the raw data of the empty tomb, but they do not have the lens to read it. The stranger begins to speak, and notice what he does not do. He does not immediately show them his hands. He does not perform a localized miracle to prove his identity. He opens the ancient texts, starting with Moses and threading systematically through the prophets. He walks them through the entire literary architecture of the Hebrew Bible. He shows them how the suffering of the Messiah was woven into the fabric of the scriptures from the very beginning. The cross was not a tragic disruption of the divine plan. It was the terrible, necessary fulfillment of it. They reach the village of Emmaus as the evening air cools. The stranger acts as if he intends to continue his journey into the dark. But an empty tomb does not prove a resurrection. An empty tomb only proves a missing body. In the ancient world, as in ours. But they urge him to stay. They sit at a rough wooden table inside a dimly lit house. A small oil lamp flickers, casting dancing yellow light against the rough stone walls. The guest takes a loaf of crusty bread. He blesses it. He breaks it with his hands. And in that specific, mundane, highly tactile motion, their eyes are finally opened. The Greek text implies a sudden, violent tearing away of cognitive blindness. They recognize him. And in the very next breath, the chair where he was sitting is completely empty. They leave the torn bread resting on the table. They look at each other and realize the truth was already breaking through out on the dirt road. Did not our hearts burn within us? While he talked to us, he did not bypass their intellect to heal their grief. He rebuilt their theology so they could bear the weight of their own joy. The two men do not sleep. They turn around and run the entire 7 miles back to Jerusalem, in the pitch black. They reach the house where the 11 disciples are hiding. They pound on the heavy door, bursting into the room to declare what they have seen. But they have no idea that the locked room they are standing in is about to become ground zero for a legal classification that will alter the course of human history. Grave robbers can empty a tomb. Roman authorities can relocate a body to prevent a political shrine from forming. Desperate, grieving disciples could theoretically steal a corpse. Luke is not writing a fairy tale. He is building a legal dossier. When the physician and historian sits down to write the opening lines of the Book of Acts, he makes a staggering claim about these 40 days. He writes that Jesus presented himself alive after his suffering by many infallible proofs. Listen to the scratch of the reed pen on the parchment. Feel the weight of the Roman legal system hovering over his vocabulary. The word Luke uses for proof in Acts 1-3 is the Greek tekmerion. It appears exactly 1 time in the entire New Testament. It is not a religious word. It is a technical term ripped straight from the medical and legal courtrooms of the ancient Mediterranean. Aristotle used the exact same word to describe a logical proof that cannot possibly be disputed. A tekmerion is a marker, a fixed point, a piece of physical evidence so concrete that it forces a judge to drop the gavel. The resurrection is not presented as a spiritual metaphor. It is presented as a tekmerion. It is not a philosophy to be debated. It is a historical event requiring a verdict. If realizing the Bible is built on this kind of forensic precision stirs something inside of you, in the middle of the night, a missing body is a tragedy. A missing body is a crime scene. A missing corpse is a mystery. You're exactly who this channel is for. Leave a comment below with your thoughts and hit subscribe, because every week we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. So, the ultimate tekmerion walks straight through a locked wooden door, while Cleopas and the disciples are still arguing in that dark, deadbolted room in Jerusalem. The air suddenly shifts. Jesus is standing in the center of the floor. He does not ask them to rely on blind faith. He demands empirical observation. He says, "Look at my hands and my feet." He tells them to touch him. He asks for a piece of broiled fish, and they stand in stunned silence, watching him eat, listening to the very human sound of a man chewing and swallowing food. Phantoms do not eat fish. Ghosts do not have bone and muscle. Hallucinations do not consume calories. The 40 days are a calculated campaign of physical verification. He is establishing the legal evidence that will sustain the church through 3 centuries of imperial persecution. But there is one man missing from this room, and his absence will set the stage for the most violent collision of doubt and evidence in the entire biblical record, not a revolution. If the story ended at the empty tomb, the movement would have died in the 1st century as a localized Jewish sect mourning. 8 days pass. The door is bolted shut. Again, 10 men claim they have seen a dead man walking, eating, breathing in this very room. One man refuses to buy it. Thomas is not a modern secularist. He is a traumatized loyalist. He watched his rabbi die a brutal, public death under the weight of the Roman machine. He is not going to risk his remaining sanity on a collective fever dream. He lays down a forensic ultimatum. He demands to see the puncture wounds. He demands to press his own physical finger into the torn flesh of the wrists. He demands to thrust his hand into the jagged cavity where the spear pierced the ribs. No physical proof. No belief. Suddenly, the air in the room shifts. The walls do not breach. The heavy iron lock does not turn. But Jesus stands in the center of the floor. He turns immediately to Thomas. He does not yell. He does not banish the skeptic. He does not offer a spiritual platitude about needing more faith. He steps forward. He extends his wrists. He pulls back his garment to expose his side. Doubt is not an insult to God. It is the threshold to a deeper conviction. Jesus repeats Thomas's exact words back to him. He invites the interrogation. He tells him to reach out his hand. He tells him to touch the wounds. Look at what this means. A resurrected, glorified body could be completely flawless. The creator of human tissue could have regenerated his own skin perfectly smooth.